G'day Flosstube, Anna, aka Morales, back with another stitching update. Welcome to everybody who's new, welcome to anybody who's returning. My channel is a bit chaotic at the moment. It's been at least 3, if not 4 weeks since I filmed. I try to keep to every 2 weeks, but with the current construction in my life, and the end of school year, it hasn't materialized. With Christmas coming up, I'm not making any promises we'll get back in 2 weeks. So for the moment, chaos is what you'll find around here. Beyond that, I have works in progress. I actually have a little bit of haul today. I have a special segment with Oliver, who came to visit us a few weeks ago with his project. So he's finished his part. I still haven't done my decorating. I'll have to do that eventually. But he's finished his part, so he's come to show it off and answer the husband tag questions. So that was, we've already filmed it. It was a bit of a hoot. He did fairly well. I'm impressed. So let's hop into it. Works in progress. I will pull out the map first because it's sitting right here. So actually, I'll show you what it should look like when it's all done. Then you might have an idea of what we're aiming for. Okay. So this big, massive full coverage, we're working up in this area. I'm still working on the borrowed Q-snap, which you probably saw when I held it up. And I am now on page 4, according to the chart numbering. It's the 6th page that I am working on. So this one will get us just into the top of the globe and the first little bit of, proper map. This is where we're at. I think last time you saw it, I was working on this page 3, and I probably only just started page 3. Yeah, my plan had been, I get so confused. This is a problem when you don't film very often. At one point I picked up this, basically just intending to do a page to test this Q-snap thing. But then on the night I finished that page, I don't remember whether it was the balloon page or the next one. It basically was just convenient to keep stitching, and so then I was a good hunk into the next page, and I just figured, well, I might as well keep stitching. No point moving it. So yeah, I've now finished the balloon page, this one, and what have I got? Probably 800 or 900 stitches into this one since I picked it up this last time. So that's fairly good progress, I reckon. I actually find myself stitching on this particular piece an awful lot at the moment because I can prop it and get away with two-handed stitching, even though I don't like two-handed stitching. At the moment my elbow is really bothering me, and if I do two-handed stitching, then that elbow doesn't have to move and it's much happier. So I've been doing a lot of two-handed stitching and actually getting better at it, but it's excruciatingly slow, and I'm be hard-pressed to say I like it any more than I used to. Anyway, it's seeing a lot of progress at the moment, and I expect, given my elbow is still sore, it may see quite a bit more progress in the upcoming months. So this is done 2 over 1 on 25 count even weave. Let's see if we can get a bit up close for you. So that, I was looking at this as I was stitching it, that block, thinking that maybe that was the edge of the arch, but it's actually the P in prime meridian. or just the abbreviation. So it's funny when you look at you know, so detailed close when you're doing individual stitches. I totally did not notice there was a P there, but sure enough, I looked back at my chart and said, huh, where's that P? And sure enough, it was there in the stitches that I'd done when I stopped to look back a bit at it. So yeah, that is the full width of this page 4. So I will, at this point, just keep finishing out page 4. I had debated going over to 5 because I've got plenty of extra width here. But you can see it doesn't quite run straight in the Q-snap. It's getting closer and closer to the edge, and it's been a royal pain to do that top row. So I expect I'll go do the rows underneath it and then shift, same as I would in my 11 by 11 Q-snap. At some point I'll have to give this big one back. I still don't think I'm sold on the big one to buy my own. I think I'll just move it to the 11 by 11 when it's next convenient and give that one back to its owner. Thanks for the loan, Michelle. Other than that, I did do at one point one long afternoon on virtual stitchers on Tahiti mandala. It was quite a while ago now, so I don't really, I'll have to insert a picture of what the whole thing's going to look like because I don't have a printout. I don't really remember what I worked on except for the fact that I tried to do some of those 1/1 shells, ended up with a complete muck-up of what was meant to be there, ripped all that out. I think I may have put a little bit extra into that gold and green motif there. Part of the haul that's arrived, I believe, is some of the extra threads for the center here, so I will probably go back and finish that next. Word of warning to anybody who's stitching this particular pattern, it wasn't an issue with the Japanese moss garden, but the shells, she gives you, what, there's like 4 or 5 shells, I don't know. And so I figured I could basically just take my print out of the shells and rotate them around, and then, you know, whichever side was up that was right for the pattern, stitch that, and it'd all be good. And that worked fine for the koi fish in the Japanese moss garden. That does not work for the shells because they're mirrored around that angle there. So you have to rotate it and mirror it. So my intention is basically to go back and print a second mirrored copy of the shells that I can work from, because clearly I am not going to mirror things in my head. That will hurt way too much. And yeah, I just don't really want to rip out that much 1/1. So that one hit a bit of a stall when I discovered that whole shell business, but I should get back to it because it's awesome. It's a chatelaine. This is 28 count cashel. Dyed it myself. It's just ripped dye. I think that's about all I can think to say on that one. Yeah, we'll have a look at those new threads that came at the end with the haul. I'm pretty sure some of those go with this. But that's one of today's big exercises, is to figure out, okay, this pile of stuff, where does it go now? What did I buy it for? Because some of it was bought quite some time ago. Do my travel piece. This one's, I can't remember how many days I've been out and about traveling. In fact, with my eldest having a driver's license now, my traveling days have gotten a lot less. I spend a lot less time waiting for Boy Scouts or whatever. But she's making really good progress. So this is Celtic Summer by Lavendar and Lace. And as far as what I've done, I know I finished off all those motifs across the top because I did that in the coffee shop just yesterday, killing time. Maybe it was the day before, not that long ago. That's just finished. I started adding all the stuff in her basket. So I think there might be a couple of stitches missing still in her basket, but a lot of that's beads actually. I did have to make one change, one of these little orange flowers. It actually it was charted to be like the really dark brown, and I'm like, well, that's a boring flower. So I swapped it for one of the brighter oranges for her sleeve. So that's pretty minor. I think all the medallions on both sides are done now. And I have a vague notion I filled in more of the missing stuff in her skirt at some point. There's still a little bit more skirt to come up the front. But, you know, really, she's getting very, very close to being ready for beading at this point. There's the outer border that goes all the way around, and I believe there might be some more tinkering in this green out front. And her skin, obviously. You can't have her without skin. So that's my tropical sunset conversion. Again, on 28 count cashel linen, dyed by myself. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Oh yeah, actually, all this metallic in here, see if you can get it up close. So across there's a run of metallic on its own. And I don't know how well it's showing in the camera, but I realized if you look at the chart, it tells you to buy 4 cards of Petite Treasure braid. When I started stitching, I did not read the chart very well, as per my usual. I just picked up my Petite Treasure braid and started throwing it in her dress where it needed to go. And at some point I was reading the chart properly and realized the chart had called for 2 strands of treasure braid, whereas I only used 1 because that's what I'd done in the chatelaine. I'm not unhappy with it. I'm just going to continue using 1 strand and having twice as much floss to go around. So, you know, if that's something, you know, you're concerned about how much floss you need to buy to do one of these pieces, have a look and, you know, see if you're happy on whatever count fabric you have with the coverage with just a single strand, and you can double your floss to go around. By the time I discovered it, I had so much metallic already in her, like an entire card or more. There was no way I was going to redo it with 2 strands. And the reality is, if I got that far into it and was happy with it at 1 strand, there's 0 reason for me to go back and add another strand. So she's staying at 1 strand on that. Actually, I did pull, just for reference for anybody, the original color scheme for her is that purples, and it appears really light teal sort of colors on here. But I don't think this card is a very accurate representation of what the actual called for colors were. I'm sure I've seen other ones that are stitched, and that outer cloak is much bluer rather than teal. So that is her. And then finally, I have pulled out the Pearl of the Orient Seas again, and I have been doing the beading because I can see the beading on Celtic Summer is fast approaching, and I didn't want to have a backlog of projects that needed beading. So I pulled out Pearl of the Orient Seas to continue working on her beads. She has a lot of beads. Oh dear, she has a lot of beads. So when you last saw her, I think I had started this stuff draping from her arms, all these treasures. but I've probably gone in and done a lot of the extra seaweed. I've still got one little bit of seaweed to finish here. I've been all down her tail now until, oh yep, you've got those few little floofs off that side, so that's probably about where the tail ends in its beads. So I still have, you know, the entire fin to go, which no doubt will be a fair number of beads, but she's getting there. There's also little, oh yeah, here you go, little bits of bling that need beads around them as well, but they're not too bad, just a couple of beads. So she will be stunning when she's done, but I'm going to be at this beads a while. And if you remember, this is a 32 count Belfast from Color Cascade Fabrics. I think it was called Dark Fantasy. But if you remember, I switched the Krynic to Treasure Braid, and one particular bit of beads, these pink ones in her crown, I switched those to a pink Krynic, and I started because of this massive gobload in there. I just didn't want that many beads weighing down a mermaid. I didn't think it'd be very, it's not aerodynamic, you know, good in the water to have a big whole hunk of beads hanging off your tail. I kind of look at, oh, I haven't got enough room on this. Try and hold this steady. So if you can see, there's little bits where these ridges in her fins are coming in, and there's kind of a gap because I've used the pink, which should have been a pink bead in the pink Krynic. That ridge kind of has a little gap, and then it goes into the beads along her backside. I'm not convinced I dislike it enough that I am going to do anything about it. But looking at it now, I think, oh yeah, that's probably one spot where it would have made sense to keep those original pink beads in on that ridge line so that it continued. I'll decide at the very end. I'll get all the other beads in, and I'll have a look at her and say, does she really need those extra pink beads? And if that's the case, I will just put them in right over the top of the Krynic Treasure Braid. But knowing me, I highly doubt I will ever go put those back in. My guess is I will be happy with her just the way she is. But if you're thinking about swapping things out, keep that in mind. It would make sense to keep them there. So beyond that, I've generally really struggled with the density of beads in this one, particularly up along her backside and in her crown where it's really heavy. Part of that is to do with the fact that I'm on a 32 rather than a 28 count. Part of that is just the sheer size and number of beads. So there's been a lot of tinkering on this to leave random beads out as I see fit. As a general rule of thumb, so let's see if I can get, we've got a repeating sort of motif where there's a larger, a larger bead. I can't think what you call it, sort of a tan sort of color. And I don't know how well it's showing up. And then that larger bead will have 4 gold small beads around it. And that motif repeats a lot. So I've done my best to keep motifs like that intact. I will put the large bead in. I will move out the gold beads as far as I need to make sure they get in. And then after that, I will start putting in whatever beads I think I can still fit. And so a lot of this other just texture stuff has been lost. Oh, please. I think my phone's giving me grief about the storage again. All right, so that is Pearl of the Orient Seas. And that was done as a sow, or is being done as a sow. with one of the local girls and Belinda Aussie Stitcher. So I put a hashtag in if you want to see everybody else's progress. Yeah, and if you want to join in, use the hashtag, never too late. Hey, Flosstube, we have our friend Oliver come in for a special visit again. Oliver is very excited to be finishing school next week, and so I think I need to come up with all sorts of new craft projects for him to take on, since he's done such a good job with this one. So Oliver's finished assembling those boxes he started the other day for me. You want to? Yep.
They're set out with 5 dividers in each slide. The whole, however many threads it is, I don't know. So they're all evenly spaced, and it took me about 2 years.
Not quite.
Yay!
So
2 years.
Give me the first tray. The trays come all the way out, which is handy if you want to go dragging things around. This tray, I usually store my bobbins on the side, and so that's what we were aiming for. But apparently there is a marginal size difference between the plastic bobbins we use as spacers and the cardboard bobbins. And a lot of these are cardboard bobbins, so they don't fit very nicely on their side. So in that tray, I've started to put them upright, and I expect I'll switch this tray over as well. I'm going to need to do something about trying to put some space holders in the back, because I like to leave plenty of extra gaps so it's easy to add colors in as you go. And eventually I'll get around to decorating them, but not in the next 5 minutes. So since we have Oliver with us today, he's agreed to answer the questions on the husband tag. So maybe we'll have to rename it for today. But, so we shall see how good his knowledge of mom stitching stuff is. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What is floss?
It's a type of thread.
Yeah, that's good. What is Flosstube?
It's the YouTube tag that everybody uses for when they're doing their cross stitching or stitching.
So that's an easy one, isn't it? A couple of easy ones to get started. What's a needle minder?
Is that the magnet that holds the needles?
The magnets that hold my needles. What's a UFO?
I don't know.
Not the sort with aliens.
I was thinking not that, but what is it?
An unfinished object.
Ah.
Okay? What's a whip?
Something you smack at people? I don't know.
No, not a whip like whip cracking. Big voice, because I don't know how well the...
What is a whip?
A whip is a work in progress. So mom's got heaps of whips going around. What is an FFO?
Fully finished object.
Very good. Have I got any FFOs?
You just finished standard stocking.
Yep, that is an FFO. Oop, lost my questions. What is a sal?
A foul.
Yes. Mom doesn't do very many of these.
Is that your hard end ranges?
Nope.
Then I don't know.
It's an acronym for stitch along. So the only stitch along I'm doing at the moment is with Michelle and some of the others that are doing the mermaid. You know, the Pearl of the Orient mermaid. What is a stitchy spot?
Spot where you stitch?
See, I told you some of them were really easy. What is frogging?
When you have to rip out a missed stitch.
Not a missed one that you put in the wrong spot.
That's what I mean.
Do you know why they call it frogging?
Did you rip it?
Very good. See, he's a clever kid. What is Ada?
That's fabric, one of the fabrics that you stitch on.
Yes. I don't actually have any Ada, I don't think, in my stuff at the moment. There's the odd project that's been done on Ada. What is a skein?
Is that what you wrap your
The bobbin is what I wrap the thread around.
The skein is how it comes.
The skein is how it comes from the shop. Yep. What is haul?
I do not know.
I would have thought this would be fairly generic. You don't know what haul is? Haul is all the stuff that Mom buys and it shows up, and then I have a whole bunch of haul.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense.
What is a stash?
Where you kept all your stuff?
Yeah, my hoard of patterns and materials. What is even weave?
Is that where you weave evenly?
Think closer to Ada.
Is it another type of fabric?
It's a different type of fabric. So that map, grab the map. Yep. So showing him this one. Whoops, it's upside down. All my threads are gone. That is even weave. It's like linen, except that it's synthetic thread, so they're very, very even, and you don't get unevenness that you get in linen. This one I'm not sure. Oh, you might know actually. What are orts?
Oh, they're the little offcuts you do.
There you go. And why would you know those are orts?
Because Maya hates it when you see orts bowl.
Yes, my daughter has a particularly glittery bowl, and it drives her nuts when I put my orts in her bowl. What is a biscornu? I've never made one.
Is it a biscuit?
No. Typical little kid answer. Is it a biscuit? No, biscornu is a cross stitch that you make into a little pin cushion. So I don't make them.
How does pin cushion have to do with biscornu?
I have zero idea where the word has come from.
It sounds French.
It does.
But also not.
Somebody can probably fill us in, or Mr. Google can fill us in on the word. What is krynic?
I do not know.
I don't often use proper krynic, but I use something similar.
Is that one of what the threads are called?
It's one specific type of thread.
So it's like silk?
No, it's not the silk ones.
The glittery one?
It's the glittery metallic ones. So krynic is one brand of glittery metallic threads. I tend to use Petite Treasure Braid, which is a different brand, but same idea. What is railroading? And again, I don't do this, so. Close. The idea is it's a way of stitching to make sure that your thread lays into parallel lines so that it gives a very nice finish to your stitching. What is a Q-snap?
A Q-snap is a frame you use to hold your linen tight.
Yes. What is a grind guard?
Is that the fabric that goes around the Q-snap?
Yeah. So the plastic here is the grind guard. No, the Q-snap, and the fabric is grind guard. What is a hay? I don't have any hay.
All I can hear is hay. I don't know.
It's a company called Heaven and Earth Designs that does very large cross-stitch projects like this map, but this map is not a Haid, it's from a different company. What is parking?
Is that where you just sit down and stitch
I do tend to park myself in the chair and not move for hours on end, but that's not quite the parking we were intending. I'll give you another hint. This one has heaps of parking on it.
Or is that where you just stop doing the one thread and move on to another?
Yep.
But keep it.
So I've parked each of the threads where they will be used next. So I've got acres of parking in that one. No, a lot of I only do the parking and the Q-snap and the full coverage stuff. And they're really big and lots of stitches where there's one stitch here in a color and then another one over there and very little in between. So, do you know the technical term for that when you have one stitch over here and one stitch over here and nothing in between? This is your bonus question. It wasn't even on the list.
I don't know.
Confetti. So, confetti in cross-stitching. That's all the questions. You did really well, kiddo. I think I didn't actually keep track of which ones you didn't get, but you didn't get UFO, did you? No. And you didn't get the Scornu. You were pretty close on railroading. And there were a couple that you had hints, but that, in all said and done, kiddo, you did pretty decent work. High five. All right, we'll catch you back in the main video. See you guys. So, I got a couple of water lilies that have come in, and these are all for the Tahiti mandala, as I thought. So, these three are color called caramel, and these are actually, they were called for to be wild flowers, the thicker cotton pearl. I decided to swap those out for water lilies just because I don't particularly enjoy dealing with that thicker cotton. I can understand why Martina picked that particular thing because I'm pretty sure it's a lot of the sand and stuff around the shells, so it would have given nice texture. Yeah, I don't want to deal with it. I just want pretty colors without texture. So we have water lilies because they're much nicer to stitch with. The other water lilies that I opted to buy rather than swap out for their DMC were the Pine Forest and the Aquamarine. Obviously this Aquamarine has a lot of variation in it, so no complaints about that. This Pine Forest, I reckon you probably could have got away with the DMC swap. There is variegation that I can see sitting here in person, not a problem. But whether or not it will be sufficient to make a noticeable difference in the stitch pattern, we shall see. Now that I have it, I'm going to use it. But again, if you're looking for spots to kind of save a bit, that might have been a potential swap for DMC. Not super interesting. I did get a bunch more DMC. I expect a fair bit of this is for the Gypsy Mermaid that I had started the kit up and really hadn't done much except pull some DMC. At this point, she's so far down the priority list and getting started, I'm not sure whether I'll even put this with her or just add it to my regular stash and someday I'll start kitting her up again. That may be the case. Some of this also may be for Oliver's stocking, so I will have to go through and make sure I got everything for that one. Because he was pestering, Mom, have you started it yet? So maybe we'll get it started today. This is the fabric for his stocking. So this is actually the same fabric. It's a even weave printed. It's the same one I'm using for the Aura of Autumn. Frig, and I can't remember what name was on there, or even the count it was, but I knew I liked this printed texture, so I thought it would be a good background for his stocking, which is the Stony Creek Coastal Lighthouse stocking. So with any luck, I might get that started this week. The other treasures that came in the mail, I was super excited because I was not expecting these for several more weeks at least. I had gotten the notification that they'd shipped, but with COVID, I had figured, well, we're still got months to wait, haven't we? And they surprised me, and they must have just jagged the timing right and gotten on a plane straight away because it's here. And it's my fabric from Under the Sea Fabrics. So this one, I'm not going to take them out. This one is Anubis, and it's just a lovely neutral brown. This one I have zero agenda for yet. It's just going in the stash. All of the ones I got are linen. No, they're not. They're kind of all over the place. Okay, this one is a 32 count linen. So then, what started this whole Under the Sea Fabrics order was, I should have pulled the patterns. I was trying to kit up a mermaid that Maya wanted me to do for her, which is the Bella Filipina, Enchantress of the Abyss. So we started by looking on Pattern Viewer and picked a couple of patterns from Under the Sea fabrics from Under the Sea Fabrics that we thought would go well with her pattern. In the end, we have Witching Hour, which she wanted the opalescent, so it's got the metallics through it. It's a 28 count, again, because we're talking Bella Filipina and beads, and I wasn't going 32, so this is a 28 count as well, Witching Hour. And her other pick to see how it worked was Midnight Mermaid. So this is an opalescent, again, 28 count as well. So we have to pull the floss and make a final decision as to which one we're actually going to stitch hers on. But those are our two shortlisted. This one I think is a fair bit smaller or lighter than I had expected it to be. The other one I looked was the Gypsy Mermaid. So therefore I can't put those other flosses away. They'll have to go with this. So my two choices were Sea God, which on the screen this showed a lot more limey green. So I don't know. It is what it is. It's a beautiful teal sort of thing. It just was not what I was expecting to arrive. So my guess is instead of Sea God, I will end up with Rigid. But again, I'm going to do a floss toss and make a final decision at that point. Probably not any time in the near future because, as we were discussing, I got other things I need to start. Both of these are 28 count. The Gypsy Mermaid, though, that's Mirabilia. That is, these are a fat half, whereas the others are a fat quarter. I don't know. It's a larger piece at 26 by 36. All the others are 17 by 26. And it only barely needed the larger fabric from memory, but it did need a larger bit of fabric. So that is, I think, everything on the haul side of things. So I'm going to try and put some of this stuff away, do some floss tossing, see if I can get that stocking started, and then I'll have a start to show you next time. Beyond that, hopefully I'll be back in 2 weeks. if you don't see me until after Christmas, don't panic. We've got company coming, so life should go back to normal in January, right? I seem to spend my entire life waiting for life to go back to normal. It never happens. I don't know. Oh, good. Take care. Enjoy your stitching. When our internet comes back up, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are all working on. In the meantime, see you next time.